Welcome to Built for This. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe. My podcast features captivating conversations with intriguing people who have found purpose in their lives through their career, family, or life experiences, and just why they were built for this. Through the stories that you will hear, I trust that you will be inspired and encouraged to find just what you were built for. So let's get started. And welcome again into the studio for another episode of Built for This. And boy, a true honor and a pleasure today to welcome a guest. He is the voice of the Texas Rangers Baseball Club, much heralded and awarded. He's a member of the Texas Rangers Baseball Hall of Fame, Texas Sports Hall of Fame, and many national awards. But a longtime friend in the broadcast industry, Eric Nadel. And Eric, thanks for jumping on the show today.
It's a pleasure, Brian. Thanks for having me.
You know, we're going to talk a lot of baseball, obviously, but I also want to talk music, food, mental health awareness, all of these that you've had a big part of in your life along the way. But we'll start with baseball, of course. It's what people want to hear about. However, I know that baseball was not really the starting point for you, that hockey was really, I guess, what you were thinking coming right out of the blocks. I'm going to be a hockey announcer.
Yeah, exactly. When I was in high school, Marv Albert was broadcasting the New York Rangers on the radio.
Wow.
And I would make sure I got my homework done in the afternoon so I could listen to every word he said. And I was so excited by the way he did those games, I decided that's what I wanted to do. And people would ask me, what do you want to do when you grow up? Mm-hmm. And I would say, I'm going to be the radio announcer for the Rangers. And I meant the New York Rangers.
Yes. So you took a little bypass.
Yeah, but as it turned out, I went to college. I went to Brown, and hockey was a very big sport there. I broadcast hockey there. And when I got out of college, I managed to get a job doing minor league hockey in Muskegon, Michigan.
Yes.
And one job led to another, and I eventually came to Dallas to do the Dallas Blackhawks. Mm-hmm. And after 2 years there, the Blackhawks decided they were moving to Moncton, New Brunswick.
But you weren't going to do that.
Well, they weren't going to let me do that because they needed to hire Canadians up there.
I see.
So I was going to be without a job, and just sheer luck, I got a phone call from the Texas Rangers broadcast department. A guy named Roy Parks was the head of it. And he decided that he was willing to take a chance on a minor league hockey announcer who he liked based on the way I did hockey, if I would audition for the job and sounded okay. So I did 4 games into a tape recorder.
Okay.
They gave me a cassette recorder.
I remember this.
And a shed of statistics and stuck me in that blue box at the old Arlington Stadium.
I know it.
By myself. And I did a 4-game series between the Rangers and the Oakland A's.
Wow.
And they listened to those tapes, and based on that, they decided that if I had a whole off season to prepare, I'd be ready by the next year to do games and not embarrass myself. But actually the key to getting the job, well, there were 2 keys. One was that I was already in town and they didn't have to pay moving expenses.
Okay, I get that.
The other thing was they were also looking to hire a sales guy to help them selling advertising. Mm. And in the minor leagues, you always did all the sales yourself.
Yeah.
So I told them that if they hired me for the broadcast job, I would do the sales job too. And that was really the key to them deciding that they would take a chance on a hockey announcer, sticking him on the air to do Major League Baseball when he had never done a baseball game in his life.
Love that. So this is about 1979-ish?
78.
78?
Yeah, it was August of 78 that I did those games into a tape recorder. They hired me to start in March of 79, spring training of 79.
Wow. So I come along at KRLD about 81, so I think I meet you in Pompano Beach, Florida at spring training. But before we talk more Rangers, initially, now that you did the big cassette tape audition and got the job, what about the adjustment from calling a hockey game to calling baseball? I mean, it's a big change.
It was huge. It's about as big a change as you can have within the play-by-play business.
Yeah.
You're going from the slowest sport with the most time to fill to the fastest sport with the least time to fill.
Yes.
And the first year or two of baseball broadcasts probably sounded like baseball on ice. As I learned to calm down and learned to do the pacing and the conversational style that fits with baseball. I was very fortunate. My first radio partner was John Miller, who went on to do Sunday Night Baseball for many years and now is the voice of the San Francisco Giants. Yeah. And he really taught me and showed me how to do baseball. And it was really valuable to me that I had a guy who was willing to make the effort to help me make the adjustment to go from being a hockey announcer to a baseball announcer.
I'm going to talk about your broadcast pairings, and you've had some great ones along the way. But jumping back to the Dallas Blackhawks, what was a little bit of flavor? Because I remember covering them. What was the minor league hockey life like? You kind of alluded to it, where you had to do everything, wear all the hats, and then sit down and broadcast the game.
Yeah, and and the biggest part of my job, according to the people who were paying me, who were the franchise holders, the Chicago Blackhawks and the Toronto Maple Leafs, biggest part of my job was getting people into the building.
Yes.
And so we hired the Richards Group to do our advertising. I convinced the franchises to spend some money on advertising. We tried all kinds of promotions. And we managed to get the attendance up about 20%, but that wasn't nearly enough for them. It was like from 3,000 a game to about 3,600 a game.
Yeah, wow.
And that was really just a drop in the bucket for them, which is why after 2 years of this joint arrangement with the two teams, they decided they better move to Canada. Yeah. But I was really racking my brain on how to get people into the building and contacting all of the media people in town, trying to get them to come out to games, trying to get them to do features. That was the big part of the job.
Yeah.
And then selling the advertising in the program and on the radio broadcasts. And then when game time came around, going up to that press box, which was on the end there.
I remember this.
At the old Fair Park Coliseum. And try and broadcast a game with the players coming at you and away from you instead of going side to side.
Yeah. Okay, back to the Rangers. You mentioned John Miller right out of the box. You've had great pairings in the broadcast booth. Of course, the great Mark Holtz worked with. But what was it like getting to work with and still working with some of the great people that we as listeners get to hear every night?
I was incredibly lucky because not only was John Miller my partner on the radio, Frank Gleber was my partner on TV.
Wow.
And I learned so much from him. I only probably did 20 games with him.
Okay.
But I learned so much from him about poise and professionalism. We did a game in Kansas City where in our headsets, we were hearing the Kansas City announcers instead of ourselves.
Oh, no.
And it was completely freaking me out.
Yeah.
And Gleber just went on as if nothing was happening.
Smooth.
He turned the volume down on his headset and he knew he'd be able to hear me. We were close enough in the booth, he'd hear me without the headset. And he just went on like nothing was happening. And not for one moment did you realize that there was anything wrong. And I really learned a lot from that, to not let things bother you that are outside your control.
Yes.
And then, of course, I went to Mark Holtz, who was a veteran baseball announcer, although he hadn't done major leagues.
Right.
He'd done minor leagues in Denver for a long time and a couple of places before that. And with Mark, I think I learned how to use personality on the air.
Yeah.
Because he was a very friendly, warm, jolly guy, and that came across on the air, and people just loved it. People fell in love with him, from the moment they heard him. Yeah. And, that was the part of my broadcasting baseball that was missing, because you really need to make the connection with people on a personal level as a baseball announcer that you don't necessarily have to do in the other sports. But in baseball, because it's conversational, because it's slow, because nothing's happening most of the time, and there's a game every day, you make the kind of connection with the audience that you don't make in other sports. And just kind of imitating what Mark Holtz did enabled me to kind of add that to my skill set, to my toolbox. And that was really the last thing that comes for most baseball announcers. Even when I listen to kids doing minor league ball or doing college ball, that's usually what they lack. They don't have the warmth in their voice. They don't have the personality to connect with the audience that they need. Once you feel comfortable with the actual play-by-play, that's when the rest of it can come.
And I'm fascinated by that part right there. That and you mentioned how a lot of the young broadcasters haven't developed that yet, but that part about baseball storytelling and really the connecting to, like you said, the listeners, because you have a lot of time and a lot of downtime, like you mentioned, and how Mark Holtz helped with that. But Are you very intentional with that when you go into a game? You've been doing it for so long now, but the fact that you're connecting with someone personally on the other end of the listening device?
I try to be constantly aware of it. I actually write in big red letters at the top of my scorebook every day, smile and have fun.
I like that.
If people think you're having fun, if they think you're happy to be there, they want to be with you.
Yeah.
They want to have that feeling that, oh, I could sit with this guy at a game and have a really good time, or I could have a beer with this guy and have a really good time. That's what fans are looking for. And if you can make that sort of connection with them, you've won the battle. It doesn't even matter at that point what you say. It's more how you say it. Have a smile in your voice. Let them know you're happy to be there. And that's a big part of the challenge of broadcasting baseball and connecting to the audience.
And the magic, like you said, you've done some television, but the magic of radio, where you've spent the majority of your time, the magic of radio, it seems to still be out there, that people really like it. And maybe it's because of this connectivity and this personal identity that they feel like they might be sitting next to you at the game.
I think that's part of it. I think the other part of it is the actual description, which you don't do on TV, where people can use their imaginations. You know, I can tell them what a pitcher looks like, how he's wearing his uniform, what his motion looks like, and the fact that they can conjure up the images in their mind. People like that.
Yeah.
You know, and some people prefer that to actually seeing the game. And part of it is, if it's a bad game, if it's a boring game on TV, people can easily see that. On radio, we can kind of disguise that, you know, with the smile in our voice, with our pacing, by maintaining some level of energy in the rhythm of the broadcast, which on TV you really can't do.
Can't hide any of that.
If the batter's stepping out and the pitcher's stepping off and it's 8-0 and nobody cares, they can see that on TV. On radio, they don't necessarily have that same feeling if the announcer maintains his energy level. And it's a challenge for us, certainly, when there's a bad game.
Yes.
But if we can keep doing that, it's a much more pleasurable experience for the audience than it is, I think, watching a bad game on TV.
And do you find yourself, because it is radio, and you think, okay, maybe the listener's not watching it on television, the spending maybe not as much time of calling the action, but describing something that's not happening on the field, or something out in the stands, or overhead, or here comes the rain clouds, or just descriptive things that doesn't have anything to do with the pitch count.
People like that a lot.
Yeah.
You know, they tell me they like hearing me tell them what the ballpark looks like.
I love that too.
You know, what the dimensions are, how many decks there are in the ballpark, where are the bleachers, where are the scoreboards?
Yeah.
You know, which team has which dugout. You know, they like that stuff. And, you know, when I get compliments on my work, I would say at least 75% of the time it's about description.
Yes.
It's about the fact I tell them what the uniforms look like and what the ballpark looks like and make them feel like they're there. That's what people want. And that's really old-fashioned radio.
Yes.
It's what announcers used to do more of before the games were on TV. They used to do more description of what the players looked like. Where did the guy stand in the batter's box?
Yeah.
What does his stance look like? Is he tall and slender, or is he short and stocky? You know, they used a lot of words like that back then, which announcers don't use now because they assume people know what the players look like because you see them on TV all the time.
Yes.
And I still believe that description of what the players look like, particularly if they're either extremely large or extremely small, that it's worth telling the audience, you know, what this guy looks like.
And is that so? I know you do a lot of appearances, things like this, or talking to classes or aspiring young broadcasters. Is that maybe the paramount thing that you might pass along to them, that, you know, eventually they're all going to be able to call the balls and strikes and what's going on in the field, but all this ancillary information is maybe more important than the game?
Exactly. And that's something that they're usually lacking unless they're told that they need to do that.
Yeah.
That is a way of connecting. The actual play-by-play of baseball is the easiest probably of any sport. You know, you don't have to memorize names and numbers.
No.
You need to know who the shortstop is, but once you know who the shortstop is, that's where he's going to be.
Yes.
He's not going to be in right field chasing the ball.
Right.
Now before they outlawed the shift, we started having some problems with that, where the shortstop might be out there in right
that's right.
field.
Yeah.
But now that they've outlawed the shift, you know where the shortstop's going to be. You know where the left fielder is going to be.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to have it memorized if you have a little defensive chart position in front of you, but it's pretty easy to remember, with just 9 defensive players who are not moving around, who those guys are.
Right.
So the actual play-by-play, which occurs rather slowly in baseball compared to other sports, is easy. But to make it more interesting, the phraseology is what's important.
Yeah.
You need to use different phrases to describe a ground ball to short. If you say there's a grounder to short, it's going to be pretty boring. But if you say there's a high hopper to short, there's a one-hop smash to short, there's a slow roller to short, there's an infinite number of ways of describing it, that makes the broadcast a lot more interesting.
You talked about the description of ballparks and the decks and what they're like. Like, hey, you've seen them all. What's some great ones that I have a few that I can imagine you would say, but since you've been able to travel and see them, maybe not necessarily from a broadcast perspective, because I know the vantage points change from where they are now, but favorite parks that you like to go to?
Well, I just love Fenway.
Yeah.
I started going there when I was in college.
Yes.
And now to be able to do games there, the vantage point is great. It's the closest to home plate of any of the 30 major league ballparks. And you have all the history there and the Green Monster and everything else. For me, it's kind of in a class by itself, even different from Wrigley Field. I'm not as big a fan of Wrigley as I am of Fenway, partially because the broadcast location at Wrigley is not very good, and the booth is tiny. When Wrigley was built, they didn't even have radio broadcasts.
Right.
And when
So
they
they're
had
not planning
to
on
retrofit the press box to fit broadcasters in there, getting into the booth at Wrigley is like stepping into the Apollo capsule. So once you get in there,
it's cozy.
You don't plan on getting out.
Yeah.
So get your business done before you go in there. Don't drink as much water as you normally do.
It's going to be a long stay.
It is a hassle to get in and out of that place. But of the new ballparks, I really love Minnesota. I think it's more unique than the others in its design. Just the shape of the sections and the way it's laid out is different. They have a couple of really cool neon signs. I love neon.
Okay.
They have the best neon sign in the league. It's the old Minnesota Twins logo where Minnie and Paul, the two twins, are shaking hands across the Mississippi River with the outline of the state of Minnesota in the background.
Beautiful.
You have a giant neon sign of that in dead center field. I just love it. And you also have the Target Center right next door with a huge dog on the side of the Target Center. That dog with the bullseye?
Right.
And its tail is wagging back and forth throughout the entire game. It's almost hypnotizing. But it's really cool. So for that reason, I like Target Field in Minnesota the most of all the newer ballparks. I also really love Seattle. I love the fact that the roof there is basically an umbrella.
Yeah.
It's not connected to the stadium, so it's not air conditioned, it's not heated. It just covers if there's rain.
That's it.
I love that. Pittsburgh is a beautiful park, but they put us up above the upper deck, so I don't like it, and I don't even go there anymore because it's not fun to do a game there.
Can't even see the field.
San Diego's a gorgeous park. I like that a lot. And I like a couple of the older ones very much. I love Kansas City, largely because of the fountains.
Right.
I think the fountains are beautiful.
Classic.
I hope that in their new ballpark they have the fountains. It bothers me that they're doing away with this park because to me it's ideal for baseball. Sightlines are great. We have a wonderful location. It's one of the closest to home plate. I love that one. I love Dodger Stadium too, just because of the setting.
Yes.
It's really unique. It's gorgeous. Not a good place to work, so I don't always go there, as I choose my road trips. But I very rarely will miss a game in Kansas City. I just love it. I love the city too. I love going to different barbecue places. It's one of my favorite cities to go to on the road, and people are always, "One to Kansas City?"
Yeah, of all places.
Yeah. You just spend a few days there and come with me to eat barbecue, and it'll be one of your favorites too.
Well, I want to talk about that then. Aside from, your kind of routine, and we'll talk about that. You've scaled back your schedule a little bit, But people might be interested to know, say you're doing a game, regular scheduled night game, 7:30 start. What does your day look like prepping? Because I know you're one of the most prepared broadcasters for a game or a series about the stats and all that. But what does a day look like for you when you're getting ready for a night game?
It's all become so much easier now with everything that's available on the internet and everything that's available on TV. And on your phone, you can watch a condensed game in 13 minutes, something like that. You can see an entire game without the time between pitches.
Sure.
So you can catch up on something that happened to the team that you're about to play. You can watch Quick Pitch on MLB Network, and in an hour you see the highlights of every game. So I try to do that almost every day. Yeah. So I'm
from the hotel.
Either after our game, when I get back to the hotel, I'll watch it, or first thing in the morning, I'll watch it. Then I'll usually, I'll have a protein shake or something in the morning and do some stretching and check my emails, go to the gym in the hotel, and then go to lunch somewhere. And pretty much right after lunch, 2:30 or so, I'm headed to the ballpark. I usually get there around 3 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game and just start prepping for the game. Usually my day starts with 10 minutes with the manager.
Okay.
I do a 5-minute Skip Schumacher show, and I have another few minutes just to kind of shoot the breeze with him.
Yeah.
Hopefully have him tell me some off-the-record stuff.
Sure.
And that's the beginning of the day for me.
Okay.
And then once we get the lineups, which is usually shortly after that, then I can start filling out my scorebook, writing down whatever notes I want to write in next to each guy. And because of the pitch clock, it's become much easier to prepare for a game. You don't need as much stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, it's challenging sometimes if you have a story you want to tell the story.
Yeah.
You usually can't get it done between pitches.
Yes.
You've got to use 2 or 3 pitches. You've got to make sure you don't start doing it with 2 outs.
Because we're done.
Or you might lose the second half of the story. But that's pretty much what my day looks like. Whether I'm at home or on the road, it's pretty similar.
Okay. So you're there 3 or 4 hours before the game starts. You mentioned go to eat somewhere. I know you're always, as broadcasters on the road, particularly, looking for the great venues and the great cuisine to do. So what do you try to find? Do you try to find the off-the-wall places, or do you have your favorites already mapped out at each city?
I pretty much have them mapped out, unless somebody tells me about a place that I want to try. But like San Francisco, for example, it's all Chinese all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
My 3 favorite Chinese restaurants are all in San Francisco.
Oh, beautiful.
And so I'll eat Chinese food just about every meal that I'm not at the ballpark.
The whole series.
When I'm in San Francisco. In New York, it's about pizza and bagels and pastrami sandwiches.
Okay.
In Boston, it's about seafood. It's about lobster and raw clams.
Yes.
In Chicago, it's about pizza.
Yes.
And, whatever city you're going to usually has some places that I've already enjoyed and want to go back to.
Yeah. So did you start out early on just trying to find those places yourself, or get a tip that, hey, you should try this place out?
I usually ask the other team's announcers or people I know who live in the city.
Yeah.
In Baltimore, for example, it's really interesting that people's opinions about crab cakes are really strong.
Okay.
Who's got the best crab
They feel
cake?
strongly about it.
Yeah, but who's got the best crab cakes and who has the best steamed crabs?
Steamed crabs.
And there are several options, several places you can go. And every time we go there, it seems there's a new place to try.
Sure.
But I always fall back on my old favorites in the end.
Beautiful. Music. Now we're going to talk about that. I know you're a big music lover of all kinds, but on the road though, do you try to seek out if you know there's a group or a band or a singer in town, or do you just maybe find a venue that might have great entertainment?
I use an app called Bands in Town.
Okay.
And before we go to a city, usually a couple of weeks before we go to a city, I'll scout out who's in town on those particular nights when I might be able to go see a show.
Really? Okay.
And I'll plan out my visit that way. So usually before I even get to town, I know what's there. It's a little different sometimes in Chicago. Chicago is one of those places I can go after a night game because their blues bars stay open till 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And there's music till 2 a.m. a lot of the cities, if I have a night game, there's really no chance of hearing any music.
They're done.
You know, Chicago can do it. New York can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes San Francisco, Toronto sometimes.
Yeah.
But when we have a Saturday day game, you know, that's where I'm usually going to luck into something. There's usually going to be an actual concert somewhere in that city, you know, that I'm going to be interested in going to.
What's your music taste? What do you?
It's pretty broad.
Whatever's.
I like just about everything. I'm not as big a country fan as I am a rock and roller, Americana.
Yeah.
What they now call folk rock.
Yeah.
You know, that's probably my number one wheelhouse.
Okay.
But my favorite band is a band called Lake Street Dive, which is a rock/jazz band with an incredible female singer. I have stalked them since 2010 when I first saw them opening a show.
Okay.
I've seen them play in 7 different states.
Wow.
And I actually have tickets to see them play in Milan, Italy in October if we're not still in the playoffs by then.
Okay. So, you know, people may not realize the broadcaster's life, and I'm talking about on the road particularly. At home, you may have a little bit different routine. But even though the games are going on, I mean, you're in a city for 3 or 4 days. Like you said, you got to figure out places to eat and things to do. And how was that pretty easy to get used to once you started doing the Rangers way back 70s and 80s to get in that routine? Okay, I figure out how this works. We stay up really late after the game. We get up later and we do this thing.
Yeah, it was pretty easy. And I had guys to guide me.
Yeah.
Probably my number one road mentor was Randy Galloway.
Oh, there's a mentor to have.
So there was a lot of late night beer drinking, followed by running the next morning.
Well,
he was very disciplined about getting up at a reasonable hour.
He was.
And getting out on the road before it got too hot.
Yeah.
And no matter how late we had stayed out the night before, he made it clear, you're going to be in the lobby at 8, you know, so we can do our 5 miles.
We're doing this thing.
And Galloway, more than anybody else, you know, told me about places to go eat, places to go drink. And then the announcers for the home team, you know, would give me better clues about food than Galloway would. Galloway was more interested in the drinking spots.
Well, I think he introduced me to Joe's Stone Crabs in Miami when they were Rangers were in Pompano Beach at that time. But yeah, you mentioned getting up and running. So when did you embrace, or maybe that was it, when Randy said, get up and let's go, that there needed to be some level of trying to take care of yourself, because it's a long, long season of wear and tear, travel, games, and all that kind of thing, that it's somewhere you're going to have to think, okay, I need to have a routine of taking care of myself.
I was pretty good from the time I got out of college and started working in hockey. I started running.
Yeah.
And I was a runner for a really long time until the late 80s, till I got close to 40 years old, and then I started having some back problems and hip problems and switched more to exercise bike and other forms of exercise, which is what I do now. But I always wanted to be careful about gaining weight, and running was the one thing that seemed to enable me to maintain my weight, even if I was drinking beer or eating huge quantities of Chinese food at every meal. The running seemed to it allowed me to do that without putting on weight.
I think I remember it's in the 80s, the Rangers training in Pompano Beach, and you're running the stadium steps, seats. But if I remember, the press box for that park in Pompano Beach was a perch way up high. So you had to go up to get that, but running pretty had to scale the stadium to get there.
Yeah, we had a fitness guy there named Mike Fitzsimmons, who was there basically to condition the players, but he also worked with us. And he was the guy who had us running stairs, and there was actually a running course near that park. That park was not a stadium, really. It was a high school field. They called it Municipal Ballpark.
I remember that.
They didn't call it stadium or anything like that. Yeah. But there was a running track around that, and we would run the running track, and then we would do the steps of the ballpark, and that was kind of usually that was the finish of the morning's run under Mike Fitzsimmons' tutelage.
Funny. Shifting gears now, I know that mental health awareness is a big thing, a big focus for you, certainly in the last few years, has been a part of your life. Talk a little bit about how that really came to the forefront. I guess the 2023 season, the Rangers are having a great year, but all of a sudden you're faced with these challenges and had to make some pretty big decisions.
Yeah, it was tough. I've had a couple of incidents in the past where I was beset by depression, just clinical depression where your brain chemicals go crazy. And for whatever reason, you start waking up in the morning and you're just sad.
Yeah.
For no reason. There's nothing going wrong in your life, but you're just sad. And then that would usually lead to anxiety, or vice versa. It would start out with anxiety and then go to depression. And the season rolled around in 2023, and I was taking medication for the depression and the anxiety, and I didn't think I was sharp enough mentally to do the job.
Mm-hmm.
So when the season started, I wasn't working.
Yeah.
And I was just hoping that I would be able to wean off the medication in time to be able to return to work with a clear head. And it took a few months, so I wound up missing the first half of the season.
Yeah. And
I was really fortunate that I was able to come back in the second half, because that was the year, of course, the Rangers went all the way.
Yes.
So it was kind of a storybook finish for me to a season that started with me not even working. But what I've gone through, I know has helped some other people realize that you need to admit it when you're going through this. You need to ask for help, and there are ways of getting help, and there are probably people who never reached out to anyone, but who did because I did, and they were aware that I had done it. And so, since I'd been through this once before but never told anybody while I was going through it, I became very active in mental health causes, mental health charities. Now I work with the Grant Halliburton Foundation, which does mental health education programs and suicide prevention programs in area schools.
Right.
I think that's really valuable for kids to know that there should be no stigma about saying you're having mental health issues, that it shouldn't be any different than saying I have a headache or I have a fever. I'm feeling depressed, and go talk to somebody, see if medication is the right route for you, or maybe it's meditation is the right route for you. There are all different ways of dealing with it, and some work for some people and some work for other people.
How hard was that for you? Maybe we as men don't really want to ever say that we're struggling or challenging. We have that I can fix it mode mentality. How hard was that for you, Eric, when you're a well accoladed broadcaster at the apex of your career, they're about to have a great season, but you're having your own challenges, but to get to that hurdle, how did you deal with that personally yourself and to get past that?
Yeah, it's really hard, Brian. The hardest thing is it feels like it's never going to end.
Yeah.
You don't see the light at the end of the tunnel when you're going through it. You're thinking, am I going to be like this for the rest of my life? Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that overwhelms you every day when you wake up again the next day and you feel the same way. Mm-hmm. And during the course of the day, you're not really enjoying anything that you do. And until that starts to change, you have this feeling that it's never going to end. Yeah. And that was really the hardest part. And on top of that, so I'm not working at the start of the 2023 season, and the Rangers have the best 60-game start in their history.
Yeah.
They go 40-20, and they're averaging like 6.5 runs a game. They're just destroying people.
Yeah.
And I'm just watching it at home, and I'm keeping track of things. I'm keeping a day-by-day book, so that I'm prepared when I come back.
Yeah.
I'm keeping score of the games. Mm-hmm. And yet, at the same time, I don't know if I'm ever going to be okay to come back and jump in and broadcast the rest of the games.
Yeah.
And that was really the hardest part of it.
Has it given you, obviously, you like you said, you're working with a wonderful foundation now, your birthday parties annually now, a big part of that. But so now we're 3 years-ish removed from that. What kind of new purpose, new vision has that given you, maybe professionally as a broadcaster, but also in just what you want to do in life now, a little different perspective maybe than where you were?
Yeah, it's a great question. It made me realize how much I love the job.
Yeah,
missing those games made me realize that it's such an important part of who I am that I want to keep doing it. You know, I'm obviously at an age where most people have already retired. It made me realize that I don't want to retire, because I thought that maybe I did, that maybe I would just call it quits and that would be the end of it. But missing those games made me realize I just love doing this. And so many people reached out to me and said, you know, we really miss hearing you. You know, we grew up listening to you and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It made me realize that, you know, what I do is important to a lot of people, and I should try to keep doing it for as long as I can. And I think that whole experience of missing the games made me appreciate more how much importance that job has to me and how much importance my doing it has to a lot of listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you look back, not that, I mean, I think you have much more to go with the Rangers here. So, but your identity, as we started this show, you thought you were going to be the Rangers announcer, but that was going to be on ice. But you look at now this, 40 years plus with this organization, and you're right. You have people at home that your name is synonymous with baseball in Texas. What has that meant to you to be, just so closely knitted and tied to an organization and your identity?
Yeah, I just love it, because when I was growing up listening to baseball games in New York, I really felt those guys were my friends.
Yeah.
In fact, Red Barber, who was doing the Yankees when I started, along with Mel Allen, used to sign on the air by saying, "Hi, friends, Red Barber here."
Just like that, too.
And I felt like he was my friend.
Yeah.
And I felt like Mel Allen was my friend. And then when we got the New York Mets in 1962 and Lindsey Nelson and Bob Murphy were doing the games, it was the same way. They were very affable on the air. And you wanted to be with them, and they were your guys.
Yeah.
And, I grew up listening to them. And, like, for me to know now that I have the same importance in people's lives that those guys had in my life, it's really a humbling experience to have. And then, for me to have had the experience to be honored in Cooperstown and have my picture go up on a wall with those four guys who I grew up listening to, Mel Allen, Red Barber, Bob Murphy, Lindsey Nelson, for me to be on the same wall with them, it's cemented my position as somebody who has had that same effect on people that they had on me.
What is it about baseball that still is so ingrained in our beings, our lives? It's always been called America's pastime. Some people try to think, well, we're more football and whatever, but kids still grow up playing baseball, and it's still such an interesting part of society, more so than just a sport. It just seems to be really ingrained in our day-to-day lives still.
Yeah, it is, and it lends itself to the stories.
Yes.
Whether you're a baseball fan or not, whether you were a baseball fan or not, in 1941, you knew Joe DiMaggio's hitting streak was going on. Everybody knows when the World Series is going on.
Right.
Maybe it has to do with the pace of the game. Maybe it has to do with the fact that personalities are much easier to appreciate in baseball because of the slowness of the game.
Yeah.
Because the players aren't wearing helmets and face masks and visors.
You can see them.
And things like that. You can see them really easily. I think that's part of it. And there have been these larger-than-life characters over the years in baseball, going back to Babe Ruth and guys like that, and, Ty Cobb and Joe DiMaggio, and there are all these stories about those guys. And now, as we have a whole different set of stars, kids can still identify, I think, with the players more easily than they can with the players in other sports.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, I guess, baseball business. Here we are in the 2026 baseball season. I think before we started the show, we were chatting a little bit about that. The collective bargaining's on the table now. Any sense of what you expect ahead for baseball? I mean, I remember covering a baseball strike back in the 80s, I think it was.
81,
and it was never fun. Well, what do you think's on the table looking ahead?
Again, it comes down to the salary cap. The players, as always, have this ideological opposition to a salary cap. They've always believed that a salary cap will affect all the players adversely.
Yeah.
I don't personally agree with that, as long as the cap is paired with a floor I believe that the average player would benefit from a new system with a cap and a floor, but, they don't seem to believe that. And everyone in baseball seems to think that, there's going to be a lockout when the contract expires in December. And then games will start being missed in spring training, and then we'll see.
Yeah.
And then we'll see which side blinks.
Right. Then the real stuff happens when the real games happen.
Exactly. And everybody seems to think that, that's going to happen, that spring training is going to roll around next year, mid-February, and there isn't going to be a spring training. And then we'll see how soon it gets settled. But nobody seems to think that it'll get settled before then.
Yeah. So as an announcer, you may have some time on your hands if that were to happen. So it kind of shifts me into a thought that I had. I know at one point, it's been a number of years, but this is totally off of baseball, but you wrote a book about limericks.
I wrote a book of limericks.
How did that idea get going?
Well, it was a bad baseball season, and it was a matter of
maybe you'll have another chance to do another one.
How are we going to get people to listen to these games when the Rangers are already 10 games out of first place at the end of April?
Yes, I remember those.
So I started writing a limerick each game and reading it in the 8th inning.
I remember hearing
So we would force people to either stick around till the 8th inning or come back in the 8th inning.
Great marketing.
But at the end of the season, I had all these limericks, and it was a matter of what are you going to do with them? And a friend of mine suggested contacting this local artist named Art James, who is a caricaturist and who loves baseball, and see if he wants to do illustrations to go with the limericks and put a book together.
Okay.
And so that's what we did, and the book was to raise money for the Rangers Charity Foundation. And we did the book. It turned out beautifully. We sold several thousand copies, and it was really fun to do. Whether I'll do another one or not
remains to be seen.
I don't know. Since I didn't do one after the World Series winning season, which I strongly considered, I doubt I'll do another limerick book. Yeah. But what I might consider doing if there's no baseball when the season starts next year is seriously start working on a book of memoirs, because that's something I've never done.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple of writers offer to help me with it, do it the as told to way, where all I have to do is tell stories and they'd actually put the book together. So if we roll around to spring training and there's no baseball, I'll probably start working on that. I've got a lot of notes in my phone for different topics, different stories I can tell.
Yeah.
And I think, I haven't been willing to do it because I haven't been willing to give up the spare time. But if I have that much spare time because there's no spring training next year, there's probably a good chance I'll start working on that.
I'd love to hear that. Now, I know you once did, because I know you love baseball history, but I think you did a segment on the broadcast many years or for a page from baseball's past.
Right.
Which was wonderful. Did you just pick a topic and pick a year or an incident or something to happen and go with it?
A friend of mine actually came up with the idea, a guy named Craig Wright. He was working for the Rangers.
Yeah.
He was one of the first sabermetricians, or now as they call them, analysts.
Yes.
And he was also a big baseball history nut. And he would feed me stuff all the time to use during the broadcasts. And most games I couldn't really get it in.
Yeah.
And so Dan Flanagan, who was the sports director
Dr. Dan.
at WBAP, said, why don't you do that as a pregame show and just tell a story every day? And that's how the idea came about. And we did it for several years. We called it A Page from Baseball's Past. And we actually did a book with 100 of the stories that was called The Man Who Stole First Base, which was one of the stories.
Yes.
And we found photographs to go with most of the stories, spent some time at the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown in their library, digging through their photo collection. And we put a book out. And then I did a similar one about basketball. When the Mavericks started, I did A Page from Basketball's Past and did a book based on that was called The Night Wilt Scored 100.
Yes, I know that one.
And if anybody's interested in those books, you can probably pick them up for about 99 cents on Amazon, as long as you pay the shipping, which is probably going to be $20.
That's okay. It's worth it.
But the book itself, you probably get for less than $1.
All right. Hey, well, you're one of the greatest storytellers ever, certainly in baseball and everything. And I would just say keep doing what you're doing, because all of us out there are listening to it, and I appreciate you being on the show today.
Thanks. I love it. The Rangers have been really good in letting me adjust my schedule. I do 100 games now, which seems to fit me really well. It's still really fun. As long as it's fun, I'll keep doing it. And, I love doing shows like this. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Built for This. Be sure to follow Built for This on your favorite listening platform and share it with a friend. Join me on the next episode when I will share entertaining stories of inspiration, encouragement, and purpose-driven experiences. What are you built for? Built for This is produced and recorded by Heart Media DFW.